Right. All right, guys, it is 7:05. I think everyone can continue to join, but in the interest of time, I do not want to keep you guys all night. So I want to make sure we cover the information quickly but efficiently so that everyone can carry on with their evenings. I don't want to hold you up too much. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Carissa Reed, and thank you for joining me for Relationship Boundaries Part 1. This is going to be a two-part series. I did not want to make this super long where you guys are, just antsy and ready to go. So we're just going to break it up into two parts and be able to kind of dig into these concepts a lot more. So quick introduction of who I am. First, let me just do a check in the chat bar, guys. Can you just kind of give me a yes if you can hear me in the chat bar? A thumbs up or whatever it is, just to let me know that you do hear me clearly. Okay, my chat bar disappeared on me. Okay, it doesn't want me to see it. All right, well, I'm not gonna fight with the chat bar. It disappeared. But that's okay. So hopefully you guys can hear me. If not, I can see Q&A. I don't really know where my chat bar went. But yes, if you have a question, feel free to drop it in Q&A down at the bottom of the screen. Everybody is muted in this format for webinar because if you have a lot of people, it's just to moderate the amount of chatter going on. Thank you. A lot of chatter going on in the background. So, oh, I found my chat. There it is. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So yes, just quick introduction. I don't want this to be about me. This is about you guys. My name is Carissa Reed. I am the resilience coach, mental health trainer, and project management consultant of Reed Fundamentals Training and Consulting. So a little bit about what we do. I provide mental health education focused specifically on resilience. I also do one-on-one coaching, so walk alongside you as you strive to achieve your mental wellness goals. We have 3 different areas of focus that fall under resilience, and that's going to be our Black teen mental health priority that addresses topics that impact youth and their mental health. For the love of self is when we talk about our 10 extensions of self and how we can care for each one of those and achieve balance within us. And finally, mental health training, such as this one right here, where I discuss a variety of topics that fall under the personal traits of resilience. All right, so my contact information is on the screen. It's going to be on the last slide as well if you don't get a chance to write this down. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Typically, I'm available between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and that's going to be Eastern Standard Time. Okay? So we're not going to have a Q&A break just for the format of this, but that's why I give you the opportunity. You can shoot me questions in here, and then I can meet back up with you as far as, via online or through the internet, or you can give me a call and we can discuss some things that you might have questions about within the training. But do shoot the questions so that I kind of know what you guys are thinking, and that will help me in the future see where I can answer more of your questions. All right, so on to our objectives. So our first objective is to define boundaries. Then we're going to determine the right boundaries for us, discuss when to put up boundaries, discuss why we even need boundaries, and then end off with communicating those boundaries to others. So first, what are boundaries? Boundaries are defined as a line that marks the limits of an area or a dividing line. So some synonyms that you can use in lieu of the term boundary are threshold and standard. The idea of boundaries within a relationship is a concept that transcends culture or sex. Everybody needs to establish and communicate their personal boundaries. Boundaries are essentially a reflection of who you are as a person. These limits that you're going to set are those that are attached to your morals, values, and your temperament. Healthy relationships require boundaries. Okay, these are not optional things. All right, you have to have them, because without regulation, you will have violations that could lead to feeling neglected, unheard, unloved, and if it's on the extreme, it could put you into a toxic relationship where your partner has taken advantage of your lack of boundaries for their own benefit. All right. Remember that boundaries are set by you. Okay. You're the one setting the tone. These are your boundaries. So be flexible with them. Okay. And adjust them as necessary. They're not concrete. Okay. So remember that. So now that we know what boundaries are, how are we going to determine what boundaries we need in our own personal lives? When we're going to determine those boundaries or the limits, you're going to incorporate four main categories. Those are going to be morality, temperament, values, and your tolerance. Okay, these are those four main categories you want to really pay attention to. In regards to morality, morality is the principle concerning what is right and wrong, or considered good or bad behavior. And this is usually tied to spiritual or religious beliefs that you might hold. For example, if you believe that there should not be any sex before marriage, all right, this is a sacred practice that's based on your religious beliefs that marriage is a sanctified thing where sex should happen according to God. So those are what we're talking about when we're talking about those moral boundaries. The boundary of not having sex, it goes against my belief before marriage. That's a religious thing. It's usually really closely tied to our spirituality. When we're talking about temperament, that's your personality. So your personality plays a really big role in how you choose to interact with other people. A person that is more reserved is going to have different boundaries than someone that is more extroverted. So if I'm a more touchy-feely type of a person, I will have a more relaxed boundary regarding personal space than someone that does not like to be touched often. Okay, so based off my temperament, my personality, I'm going to find things a little bit more, I don't know, exciting to add to my thing. I want these types of boundaries. I really like to be around people, so I don't have issues with things like that that someone else might feel. Okay, so pay attention to your personality and how you can implement things in your life that are specific to you. Values is another thing. All right, and these are your priorities. So what you believe to be important within your life. So you could say that our love languages would fit pretty nicely in this category. For example, if you value quality time and acts of service, those are two of the love languages, if you're familiar with those. I'm going to set up limits within my relationship that should allow for greater interactions of quality time, right? It's something I value. I'm going to make it so my boundaries allow for me to have the quality time that I need. All right. And sometimes what happens is we become counterproductive to our own mission when we put up boundaries without regard to those values that we hold. All right. And so, for example, let's say this. If you have a boundary that you're meeting with someone, you're trying to connect them as a potential partner, and you go, don't contact me on the weekend, right? For whatever reason. Let's just say, right? I'm busy, don't contact me, right? But your partner works during the week. So it makes it really difficult for you guys to see and interact with each other, right? So what happens is you're going to start to feel like that person doesn't value you, right? You don't make time to see me. You know, if you really cared that much, you would make time for what you want, right? A lot of people say that. Make time for the things that you want. But in reality, you kind of set yourself up from the beginning because you fail to consider your partner's constraints and adjust your schedule so that you can then make room for those values to be upheld, right? So we have to bear in mind the flexibility of these boundary lines to accommodate our own desires And also know that this is a partnership when you're entering a relationship. So being able to consider the other person and what they're able to do to move our boundary lines accordingly. Okay, so being flexible. And finally, our tolerance. So the capacity to endure continued subjection to something. That's what tolerance is. So primarily how much you're willing to tolerate things that you perceive to be disrespectful, humiliating, or abusive. All right. This includes things like unwanted touch, invasion of your privacy. So someone going through your phone, your mail, going through your social media, right? So the tolerance level for that. So boundaries, like I said, they're flexible, but you want to make sure that the amount of grace that you're extending within these boundaries is something that you're comfortable with. So don't just be flexible and allow anything to go if it makes you uncomfortable. These are your boundaries. All right. And this is directly related to violations because you need to know how much you're going to tolerate your partner skirting those boundary lines or even crossing it. How much of that will you put up with? All right. Because at some point you're gonna be like, I'm done. But when is that for you? You need to be able to determine where that tolerance level is for you based on each one of these categories. Okay. So remember that some of these are going to be more lenient, where you're going to be like, okay, I'm a lot more flexible with this as far as ranking. This is not the biggest deal for me. But some of those things are going to be hard nosed, and you need to determine what those are ahead of time. An example of this would be sex before marriage. Okay, so we used that before, so we'll just continue with that example. If I believe that my morality tells me not to have sex before marriage, I rank that pretty high, right? That's tied to my spirituality. And because of this, my tolerance level for violating that, right, trying to have sex with me, continuing to try to pressure me into it, is going to be non-existent, right? This is a hard no. I said no, okay? And so any violations of this is going to lead to you not being with this person anymore, all right? So you're going to be like, that's it. You're not respecting the boundaries that I put in place and the importance that it has for me. So my tolerance for something like that is not going to be high. All right. So these are going to be your main categories when determining the boundaries that you want to set. Now, I wanted to add in a small note, so to be mindful of that when you're doing this and you're going down your list of things that you know, what's my morality tell me should be a good boundary for me? How does my personality determine, you know, what types of things I care to tolerate, what things are important to me, my values, right? Note that your morals and values are going to be directly related to your personal experiences. So this is your family life, your upbringing, your religious background. I note this because the practices that you may have witnessed growing up could be outdated, right, in terms of social norms, or they could have been toxic to begin with. And we're going to discuss toxic relationships in a different training, but I want you to keep this in the back of your mind as a consideration. So when you're starting to figure out what's important to you, that you're only going to take with you those positives from those past experiences so that you can make room for new and healthier practices. So just bear that in mind. Not everything you've seen might be something you want to continue on and say that it's a boundary for you or it's a value for you. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So when should we put up the boundaries? When do we even get these set up and ready to roll? In the beginning, if y'all saw that video before, you want to get these ready to go before you enter a relationship, okay? Boundaries should be established in the beginning. This requires that you are secure in your understanding of who you are prior to starting an intimate relationship. Okay, during the relationship is not the time to discover your values and limitations. Relationships are not 50-50. Everyone should come in as a complete person. So 100% you, 100% your partner, and be willing to share all of you with your partner. Okay, so it's two full, whole people coming together. All right, in the beginning, because If not, then you're going to start seeking for your partner to complete you, right? You're going to look for validation for them for areas that you should already have the answers for because you know you better than anybody else. Okay. And what could happen is this seeking behavior, like I need you to fill this void, can turn into more of dependency that's toxic. Now, we all depend on our partners in varying degrees, but sometimes we're so invested in what they think and what they want to do that we lose sight of ourselves. So we want to make sure that the boundaries we're putting up completes us as a whole, as we know us in our present day, because that will evolve. We're going to grow. We're going to encounter new situations within our relationship. Hopefully you should be maturing, right? That's a goal you set every day, to mature and develop as an individual. And so this means that you might value something different later on down the line. Your temperament might change, right? If you look back in the past and say, "Ooh, I used to be a wild individual, and now I'm a lot more calm," what I would have accepted as far as tolerance from the past, I no longer find that to be acceptable. So that's going to change with you, but that's maturity. That's not you not knowing who you are and coming in as a blank slate. Okay. Like I said, over time, the areas which need to be modified, you're going to put up some boundaries, and then you're going to take some of those down, all right, depending on which ones they are and how you're growing as a person. So why do we need boundaries? I hope I'm not going too fast, guys. Like I said, trying to get you out in the interest of time. If you have a question, you can, is this recorded? Oh, hi, Anitra. Yes, it is recorded. It is recorded. But yes, if you do have a question, like I said, shoot it in the Q&A if you have any questions. If not, because I'm gonna keep going, I'm going to try to, like I said, get you guys out. Yes, this is recorded and it will be posted when I get it posted. I don't want to give you guys a date. You're like, it's not up there. Okay. But yes. So, but why do we need them? Why do we need our boundaries? So there's about 5 key things that I've identified to determine why we need boundaries in the first place. And first, it's to set a precedent. Second, to provide an opportunity for respect. 3, to moderate the flow of your relationships. 4, to feel valued. And 5, to decrease the number of violations that you experience. So setting a precedent, all right? This means that we are setting a standard or model of behavior that we deem acceptable in our relationships. So boundaries help to set those lines, okay? So when you are, things are important to you, that you will know what your boundaries are prior to into the relationship, right? So I know what I want before I get here. Therefore, I'm going to set a standard, right? I like when people hold the door for me. So I'm already going to come in and say, look, I'm looking for a gentleman. That's a standard. I'm going to set that as the precedent for this relationship. I'm not going to accept or be super flexible and lenient on things that are regarding that type of behavior toward me, displaying gentleman-like behavior, right? So my tolerance level, I know this, and I'm going to set that as a standard of practice. So I will look for that in the beginning of my relationship. Okay. And it eliminates the heartache of having to add important rules and standards later in the relationship. All right. Can you imagine coming into a relationship and the person is not being a gentleman at all? They're not holding the door. And I'm just saying gentleman just because, nothing to guys, but say they're not being a gentleman. They're not holding the door for you. They don't call you right back when they say if they're going to. So they're not holding their word for you. And you let this continue. And then suddenly you go, I'm tired of this. I don't like this. I find it disrespectful. And then you try to change it up. And then you try to go, hey, you need to start calling me. Hey, you need to start holding the door. But he's been going on and on like this for months. And you've never checked that boundary, right? It's way harder to break that than it is to come in from the door as saying, this is what I expect. This is what I will tolerate. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I value. So once a relationship has begun, understand that your partner will be operating based off the model you set. For example, in the beginning of a relationship, you said your partner is late picking you up from dates. You should expect that he's going to continue doing that unless you check the behavior. So don't be like, well, maybe it was just this one time. And maybe it was this one time. Maybe something really happened, but you need to check it, which means verbally say how you feel about it so that he understands that that's a boundary line for you, even if it was, just a one-time thing on his end, or, mistakes happen, things happen. But if he never has been checked, expect that he will do it again and not think it will really bother you because you've never said anything about it before. So understand habits. Once a habit sets in, they are really hard to reverse. We've known this about our own bad habits, okay? And it's going to lead when you start trying to check your partner and say, hey, I don't like this. It can really, lead to a breakdown of your relationship. And this breakdown could be temporarily, you guys just split up for a little bit. You guys had an argument, right? Because most of the time when we're trying to check boundaries, it sparks an argument, right? Or it can be permanent, right? That person is just not going to do whatever you want them to do. They decided like, hey, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make that change and then end the relationship. Because everyone does not adapt to change well. So if you have someone and they're set in their ways and you try to change it later on, you might risk losing that individual. But this can be changed. Like I said, we can rectify past mistakes. It's a lot more work, but it can be done. It's not impossible. All right. So setting healthy boundaries in the beginning of the relationship can also help you quickly rule out anyone that is not willing to accept your standards. Like, why are we waiting to find out later on? Like, we set the boundaries now, and if they don't want to be a part of it, they say, hey, look, that's too much work, or it's not, it's not that serious for me. Then you'll know from the beginning that, okay, this person is not someone for me because I'm not going to be violated every 5 seconds, constantly doing things that I find disrespectful or, goes against my morality or things like that. So you need to be firm, fair, and consistent with your boundaries so that that person believes that if the person believes you're worth their time, right? If I believe you're worth it, I'm going to put in the effort to adapt to your needs. Now, again, I want to preface that both people have boundaries and standards. Okay, so it's not just one side, it's not just you. So when we're talking about this, yes, they're going to adapt to you, but also know this is in the reverse as well. You have to be open and willing to adapt to your partner's boundaries that they have and they set as well. Okay, so that's one thing that boundaries do. They set the precedent, they set the tone at the beginning of that relationship of what the expectations are. This is also an opportunity for respect. Boundaries give your partner the opportunity to exercise respect and acceptance of your preferences as a sign of love, value for you. Okay. Now, you might be thinking they should be respecting me regardless. And this is true. They should respect you. But understand that everyone has boundaries, not just you. And so his boundaries might be respectful, loving, and valuable in his own eyes or her own eyes or whoever, right? They might not necessarily align with your beliefs. Okay. It doesn't make them wrong. It just means that you need to communicate your boundaries so that your partner has the option of adapting to them and operating in a way that pleases you from the door. All right. We're setting these up from the door. We want to make sure that no one is confused. All right. Your partner's not going to set these for you. They're not going to set them for you. Let's use an example. If your partner wants to be intimate with you, right? They want to have sex with you in the relationship in the beginning, right? We talked about this as a boundary. It's a really common boundary that people toy with, whether or not should I have sex when I first meet them, should I have sex after marriage, whatever your values, beliefs, they all start to conflict, especially in this area because it's a high area for temptation, right? But yeah, so if you believe that the person should, if they value, they'll wait for me, they won't pressure me to have sex. That's your assumption that they value that the same as you. You're assuming that they have that same belief as you do. If you have not verbalized that, then you're denying them the opportunity to honor it, because what will happen is they're going to turn around and ask, right? They like you, you know, you like them, they're physically attracted to you. You never gave them the opportunity to respect that you wanted them to wait. And if you had said something, he might have been completely okay with waiting. Like, he wouldn't even have pressured you. He wouldn't even ask you more than once, right? You're annoyed because he's asking you more than one time to have sex, but you never told him, like, look, I really want to wait. I think it's important that I get to know you more as a friend before we get intimate, or, I value waiting for after marriage. And then they go, oh, you know what? Okay, I understand that. I respect that. And then they can fall back. Give them that opportunity to respect you in the way you want to be respected by letting them know. Okay. So like I said, this is all your responsibility. But I say that, I want to preface that when I'm saying this is your responsibility to avoid these types of violations by setting these boundaries up early and articulating them, it doesn't mean that I'm talking about overt violations of your person. So like social norms and like laws, talking about domestic violence, sexual. So I'm not talking about those types of violations of your boundaries. Those are a definite no-no. They have nothing to do with you. They're completely the other person's fault. We're talking about, though, things that your personally expectations, right? I personally expect these things to happen. I'm looking for this out of my relationship. I value these types of things. My morals tell me this. Like, these are from you. So that's what I'm saying. They're your responsibility to unearth what those mean for you, and then lay the foundation for the relationship so that that person is well aware of your expectations. Yes, it will be, Renee. It will be recorded. Okay. Right. So like I said, that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about expectations, and that they're your responsibility. It said, don't let people violate you. That is not for you. That's for them to check themselves. All right. But we're talking about your own personal desires. So with that being said, we're hearing some really great things about boundaries. Why would someone not have them, right? Why would this even be something that would need to be discussed? There's three things that might prompt someone not to put up boundaries. Acceptance, fear, or rejection is a really big one. Okay, some people are afraid to put up boundaries because they don't want the other person to walk away, right? I don't want to be like, no, don't do this, and then they leave. What if they leave me? All right, it's a big question people have. What if they are not willing to change or adjust whatever their expectations are, like that they brought to this relationship to make me happy, right? So some people just, I'm just going to accept whatever I get because I don't want to lose something. So that fear can be debilitating, right? Wanting to be accepted, wanting to be loved can cause you. Yes. Okay, I saw your question in both spots. But yes, can cause you to not put those boundaries up. All right. And to be honest, though, if that person is not willing to accept your boundaries, this saves you heartache, because once again, if we're setting these at the beginning of the relationship, the truth will reveal itself very quickly. People can only be fake for so long, especially if you are being consistent with your boundaries. You're being clear, right? You're communicating. We're going to get to communication. But if you're being clear and consistent and fair, because like I said, you're not the only person in this relationship with boundaries and expectations, but if you're articulating your own, if that person is not willing to accept them, you can move on to the next person and find someone that is willing, okay? Don't waste your time. Your reputation. This sounds like a weird one, but some people are really attached to what being free, or whatever they used to be, means for them. Okay, so say you're a person who was very free, had multiple sex partners all the time. It was something, that's just what I did. I didn't commit. I'm known for not committing. My friends, they live vicariously through me, right? I'm watching you like, oh man, how many people you sleep with? And everybody's all excited. They're rooting for you and your free lifestyle. People want to be you, but no, in real life, they never will be, right? That's that vicarious living, right? And you've created this identity around certain things that, maybe you don't want to do anymore. Like, I kind of value settling down now. I really want to be connected to people in a different way now. How do I shift that without losing the crowd of friends, right? That validated me, that made me feel comfortable, right? Or, how do I do that without maybe losing someone maybe I was sleeping with before and became connected with? And like now I want to change it up and be like, okay, now I'm in a relationship. What if they don't accept that shift from me? Right. So my reputation, I don't want to lose things, right? That acceptance, that rejection is still there, right? But it's also tied to my identity because I feel like even some traits that are, let's face it, toxic sometimes, it defines who I am. I feel like that's just who I am, right? So I don't want to lose that piece of me because who am I without it? All right. So some people don't put up boundaries because of that. And finally, just being naive altogether, right? I didn't even know I needed boundaries. I just was existing, right? So I might not be in tune enough with myself to know what I even like, right? If I doesn't even necessarily have to be young, but for the most part, if I am young, I really haven't had enough life experience to be like, this is something I really like in my relationships. This is something I value in a partner. This is what I'm looking for as, for my goals, and put those boundaries up accordingly. I might not just be in tune enough with myself to be able to do that. Okay. So I like to say, if you can't explain it to other people, then you really don't understand it. Because if I can't tell you what I value, what my morals are spiritually, then I don't even know it. Because if I can't tell you, I don't know. Okay. Like I said, don't give the other person the option to respect and trust you, to establish that. Because if you don't give them the boundaries, you're giving them like, maybe they'll trust you, maybe they'll respect you. It's a toss up. You gave them nothing to work with. Don't gamble with that. All right. So don't give them those options. Don't just have a free for all. They don't have to work for anything. You're an open book, open door, easy access to me because I have no boundaries to stop you. I'm not saying no. Right. So we want to make sure those healthy relationships have boundaries that require people to establish trust with you before you give them greater access to you, to establish respect, right? Continuing to act in accordance with respect for what you value in your life as well. All right. Any questions? I don't see anything. Any questions? Hopefully, once again, I'm not moving too fast for you. Is everybody good? You can just shoot me a yes, a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know you're still hanging with me. Hopefully this is useful information. All right, so moving to the next use of boundaries. So boundaries help moderate the flow of your relationship, okay? They can help you stay and remain in a casual state or help facilitate a more intimate relationship when you're ready, right? If I put these boundaries up, I'm helping that person understand how far I want to go in this relationship, okay? So I can say, hey, no, I just want to be friends, and I'm going to share things with you that I value within my friendships, right? These are my friendship boundaries. They don't look the same as my, more intimate partner boundaries. They're going to look different. So I'm going to be clear about my position of wanting this to be, just a friendship, and then putting up friendship related boundaries. I'm moderating how fast that I become intimate, and not intimate sexually, just intimate with yourself, with your hopes, your dreams. You're not going to spill all this out to the person if they're supposed to be in a friendship, relationship with you. So my boundaries are going to mirror the flow that I have. Okay. What's going to mirror the flow that I'm wanting to see in my relationship. Okay. And then I can start to transition it as I'm ready. So many people have experienced this when you have a friend, right? This person's my friend. And maybe they were a professional friend, right? So I'm at the office, say I met this person at the office. We started off professional, right? That's one relationship that's going to have its own boundaries, right? I don't date people in the office, blah, blah, blah. Some people have their rule. Maybe you don't have that rule. So you go, hey, we can start being friends outside the office and see where that goes. We might be attracted to each other. We might like each other. It might not be like, anything crazy, like he's my boss or anything, but just, coworkers, you like each other. You're going to see how things go as friends, right? I'm going to put those boundary lines up to say, hey, we're just friends. We want to make sure you're being clear and keeping your own boundaries in mind, because say the text messages start off, hey, how was that project last week? You know, you guys are talking after work. Then suddenly it starts veering to, hey, what are you wearing? You know, or hey, beautiful in the morning. And you haven't moderated the flow for that. That's not where we're at, right? I want us to stay in this little pocket of friendship. And now we're in this murky situationship where I'm getting text or conversation is going in a place that I'm not ready for, or it might not even want, right? You want to set the pace. So you have to check your boundary. If your boundary is not clear, if that person maybe didn't pick up on what boundary you placed, right? Reiterate it, okay? So like I said, we're gonna talk about communication, but making sure that they understand where you are. And if they have that understanding and continue to violate your boundary, then you know what you need to do, your tolerance level. Am I going to tolerate these, hey, sexy texts when we're supposed to be just friends and coworkers? Or am I going to be like, oh, I guess this is a more relaxed boundary as far as how I write this. This is as important to me, and I'm going to be more flexible. I mean, that's up to you. You have to decide that. But make sure you understand that if you started off presenting this as, hey, these are my boundaries, and you erase them quickly, it's a slippery slope, because we talked about patterns of behavior, right? Setting that precedent. If that person believes that your boundaries are super murky at best, they're going to push the buttons. They're going to see what else they can get, right? You give somebody an inch, they want to take a foot. So make sure that you're being clear and you're sticking, like I said, being firm with what you want and are willing to accept within the boundaries and the flow of the relationships you're establishing. All right. All right. So feeling loved and valued. Boundaries help us to feel loved and valued, all right, as individuals. We get our first understanding of these boundaries in this particular role from our parents. So children that have structure and order within their household tend to feel safer and more loved. If there's no structure within the home by way of rules and expectations, right? So those boundaries, the child is going to feel like no one cares about them. Okay. And this is the same thing when it comes to our adult relationships. So if you have a husband or boyfriend and they never ask where you're going or check in with you throughout the day to make sure you're safe and see how you're feeling, you're going to think they don't care about you. You never even ask. You don't even care where I'm going, right? There's no boundary. There's no nothing. I'm free to roam, right? No boundary lines. Is everything is a free for all, right? I'm going to feel like you don't care about me. This also is true when we're talking about work. Right? This is true for every relationship, varying degrees, but true in every sense that we need those boundaries. If you go to work, your boss never checks in on you, right? They never be like, hey, how's your workload? You know, is everything going well? Or everybody can come in whenever they want. You see people late, no one ever gets in trouble for it. People eating all over the place, right? No structure, no boundaries. Everybody just do whatever they want, right? You're gonna be like, nobody cares about this job. This boss does not care about his business because there's no structure, there's no boundaries. It's the same thing for your relationships. If you're feeling like, hey, this person doesn't care, maybe you have not set the precedents or parameters or boundaries within that circle to get what you need. Like I said, you have to be the one to communicate how you want to be loved, right? How you want to be valued and how you want to establish trust within that relationship and respect. It's important. So once again, there are levels to this, okay? Don't mistaken these types of boundaries, like I'm checking in on you, making sure you're good, da 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 da, all to be love and respect. That's not true, because there's also extremes to this. And I want to note that because I don't want anybody to walk away thinking if, someone is controlling, right? They're texting you 35 times, checking your phone and doing all that. That's supposed to be love. That's not what that means. Okay. So controlling behavior is going to make you feel trapped and isolated. Like I can't go anywhere. Like I feel trapped. Like I feel like he's going to show up any second, or her, whoever. Right. But on the other hand, if you're talking about just pure, healthy boundaries, it's going to be like a gentle check. So I just want you to gently understand what I'm looking for. I'm just checking in with you. My boundary is just a check line, right? It's not overbearing. I shouldn't feel, on edge. because I'm in a relationship that has boundaries. That's not what that's for. Okay. So I'm kind of just saying with my boundaries, hey, I really want you to check in with me because I want to make sure you're safe. Right. My motive behind establishing the check-in boundary, right? I need the communication with you. That's something I value because I worry about your safety. Like I genuinely don't want to, I want to make sure you're good. I care about you. Right. That's a healthy boundary. It's okay to check in. People, make fun of their friends. Oh, you keep calling your wife, whatever. That check-in is a sign of respect. It's a sign of love. It's a sign of I value you enough to make sure that you're not stressing about my whereabouts on a daily basis, right? So it's that type of security versus something that is going to be more toxic, right? I'm checking in on you because I'm afraid you're cheating on me. That's not the same motive. They're completely different things. Okay. One is controlling. The other is a loving gesture because you genuinely care about this person. And be very careful if you start to see signs that someone is being controlling, because it could lead to domestic violence. When somebody wants to have power over another person for whatever reason, their own insecurity or whatever the case is, it could lead to that. So definitely be wary of those signs as well. Julie, I do see your question, and I would love to address that in a separate training because that's a loaded one, and I definitely will. So I keep that in mind, and we will definitely do a separate training on that, because that's a really good one. Okay, so we're almost to the end, guys. We have a couple more slides. Thank you guys for hanging in there. So we want to decrease violations, right? And by violations, we mean of our boundaries, right? That we establish, people violating, people going against what we said that we wanted in our relationship, what we said was important to us in those 4 categories. All right. But when we set up healthy boundaries, it helps to alleviate unnecessary stress associated with unintentional violations, because that person is not intending to violate you if you didn't tell them, right? I don't know you don't like being touched unless you tell me, right? I don't know that. So these people are, unintentionally violating your personal space, your property. I don't really like when people touch this or whatever. No one knows what those boundaries are for you if you didn't state them. So we want to decrease those unintentional violations as much as possible. Okay. My sister calls them unnecessary testimony. So you're going through all this heartache for no reason to come out on the other side. So make sure you're trying to alleviate that. So situations that could be avoided by being more mindful of ourselves and intentional about relaying the information to other people in our circle, right? So I know what I need. I'm relaying that information. That way we have no problems, right? So I'm going to be more open and honest about what my limits are. And then that person is less likely to violate them. So we want to set boundaries up just to decrease the odds of that happening. And if somebody violates those internal ones, right? We never shared it. These are these internal boundaries that we kind of have in our minds, right? We have not shared it with the class yet. We're just kind of ruminating on what we feel and what we would like to see. It doesn't mean that person would not have put in the effort to earn the access to you, right? You go, well, he's, trying to touch on me and I don't like that. And I really just wish he would just kind of hang out with me, but you're not saying this out loud, right? We do a lot of that internal processing where I'm putting up boundaries just in my head. I didn't tell this man this, or, whoever, they might have not done it, right? Or they might have checked themselves and go, okay, this is important to this person. I'm going to put in the effort, right? So you're taking away the opportunity for this man to recoup and look better. He might be great, but these unintentional violations are starting to diminish what he looks like in your eyes because you're not enjoying this, right? I don't like that he keeps good morning, babe me, and we just met 2 seconds ago, right? Red flag, right? So you're feeling all of this, but you're not saying it. And they just keep violating. And then eventually you stop talking to them and they don't even know what they did because you never said it out of your mouth. Well, I didn't like what you were doing. And they're like, well, I would have stopped if you would have said something, right? So decrease these unintentional violations. And this brings us to our last topic of conversation, and that is communicating. This is so important, guys. It's so, so, so important. We have to talk about it. We have to tell people. We cannot keep this to ourselves. And so I'm going to point out a couple key things. Like I stated before, you don't really understand it if you can't explain it. If you can't tell someone else what is important to you and what you value, then you don't know. You need to take a step back and assess, because you don't want to walk into a relationship where you don't even know what you want, and then now you're coupled with somebody else, right? And then now you have to try to compromise in areas you don't even know what you want. How do I compromise? I don't know if I want that either, right? So you want to make sure that you understand what you want so you can communicate it. That's the first thing, okay? So we first want to be direct. When you're communicating concepts or ideas that are closely tied to your emotions, sometimes it's a struggle to articulate those thoughts that seems really clear in your mind, right? If you're to think right now, right? Because I don't know, I can't hear you. No one here can hear you. If you're thinking, okay, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, you already know in your head, right? If I were to unmute you and say, hey, tell me what those things are, could you tell me? And oftentimes it's going to be no, because it's harder to say out loud the thing that seems so clear in your head, because it's tied to your emotions, right? And this is primarily due to that apprehension about the reception of what I'm saying, right? How's this person going to feel about what I just said or what I just told them, right? That fear of rejection, right? We talked about that before, right? It leads people to not want to speak up and set those boundaries. We're afraid of something, right? And if I tell you this is what I feel, then you might not receive it in the way that I'm looking and hoping for, right? And that in itself makes us uncomfortable and causes us to start searching for these perfect words, right? I can't just say it the way it's in my head, because what if they don't like the way I said it out of my mouth? So now I'm in my mind trying to find magic ways to say things, right? Then I start adding all these unnecessary prefaces. Remember, I usually don't do this, but I want you to know that, instead of just saying it, just say what you need to say, right? We start doing this whole big dance just to try to make it something that you think, right? This person can digest more easily than your direct response, okay? So before you start to share, because your boundaries are personal to you, right? This is not just, oh, I'm just telling people, little things that I like and don't like. These are actually, they're connected to you, right? This is about me. These are things that I've developed over time because of my experiences, about my past, about who I am as a person, my spirituality, like that's all connected to me, right? We want to make sure that you are in a judgment-free zone. Please do not start sharing these deep things with people who are not providing you with a safe space. If you don't feel safe to talk about it, and not necessarily safe as physical safety, but safe, like if I tell you this, it's not going to come back to me. Safe as in we haven't established enough trust for me to go this deep into, this conversation, then you might not want to have this conversation with these people, okay? Because then that can eliminate a lot of that apprehension, that fear that you feel with sharing, because I know it's a safe space. All right, judgment free. I can kind of talk to you in plain language about what I'm feeling. Okay, so you want to make sure you tell them that though, because you want to give them, once again, opportunities to adjust their approach. Because if you don't say that and you just start talking to somebody and you start telling your deepest, darkest secret, and they look at you crazy, and then you feel some type of way because what you just told them, you're like, oh man, see, I shouldn't have told them. Now you start beating yourself. Unnecessary testimony. Just tell them, hey, look, this is really hard for me to say. I want to tell you something that's personal. It's clear in my head, but if it doesn't come out right, I'm really sorry. It's a lot, but I really want to talk to you about it. Right? Set the stage. Let them know, look, if it sounds crazy, I'm sorry. I just need to at least try to tell you what's going on. Right? Which brings me to the next point. Say it out your mouth. Just say it. Go for it. Throw it out. Just the best way is to just start talking. Don't try to find those magic words, right? Say however it comes out, because over time, and depending on the situation, time and distance brings clarity, right? The more you actually are mindful of whatever your emotions are, like I feel this type of way, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, it becomes easier for you to articulate it because it's clearer to you, right? So the more clear it becomes for you, the easier it would be for you to say. But you don't want to say nothing at all until you get to that point, right? I want to wait till I can say it great and then tell you. Because once again, you want to give them the opportunity to have something to work with. I don't know what we're working in. You won't say anything and it's not going to work out because then they're going to start violating you. Even though you can't articulate it, you still know that you don't like it, right? So you want to make sure that you give them something to work with, be direct about it, just say what you need to say and don't be afraid of it. Create that safe space by telling them that you need that safe space, all right? The next thing you want to do is be clear. Be clear and don't operate from this imaginary playbook in your mind, right? So when we're talking about boundaries, you want to put up clear signs. I think of like the borders between states. When it says welcome real big to Virginia, they should know where they are with you. All right, you want to make sure it's very clear what your boundary line is for someone, okay? When people become like jaded from past relationships, they can begin to set up these like silent tests for the partner or potential partner, right? I wonder how long it's going to take him to realize I'm mad, or he always on the game, but I really want to hang out with him. And then you sit there staring at the side of this man's face, hoping he feel your vibes and decide to do what you hoping in your mind. Too much. You're not being clear. Nobody knows what you want, right? Men don't really pick up, no offense to men, subtle cues like that, but we're just hoping that he just feels, and these secret tests and how long it's going to take him to see me feeling this way. No one's going to know that, okay? Just assume that he don't know and say it out of your mouth, okay? Be clear. Don't, I was blinking 3 times, you missed it. Well, he's going to miss it because I don't even know what you want, okay? So make sure you're being clear. So state your expectations clearly, but also, once again, I keep wanting to rewind it, with regard to the fact that he has his own boundaries, priorities, expectations, standards, all of those things, okay? So don't just be like, look, you need to pay attention to me and do all the things that make me happy, because you negate that person. And that's not the start of a healthy relationship, because you don't want it to be one-sided, okay? So you politely come up to them like, hey, babe, I'm not trying to hijack your game. I know you really, into whatever it is you're playing. I really just miss cuddling with you and watching TV. Can we do that sometime? Maybe tomorrow, maybe after the game, kind of ask them in a nice way. This is what I want. These are my expectations. I want to cuddle with you and watch TV. I can tell them exactly what you want. I know you want to play the game. I'm not trying to take that away from you, right? You're setting that stage. Like, I respect what you want to do, but this is what I want to do. So let's see how we can kind of meet in the middle, right? So we're being clear about what we want. And then we can reach a compromise, right? We talk a lot about compromising in relationships. And like I said, when 2 people come in with 2 different boundary lines, right, we won't know where they intersect, cross each other, or anything if we don't articulate them, right? Because maybe he values his alone time right now. And if he doesn't articulate that to you and you're sitting there pressing him to be with you, y'all are not connecting, right? So being vocal really helps to alleviate those unnecessary stressors. Being proactive. I keep saying alleviating stuff, getting ahead of the game, because we don't want to just keep reacting to situations in our lives, right? Something happens, I'm mad. He did this, I'm mad, or she, or whoever, right? Stop reacting to things. Get ahead of it, right? We're going to jump in this relationship ready to go with what I like, my expectations, my values. I'm going to come in here with it. So you don't have to guess at all right? Being proactive, I'm getting ahead of this, all right? Most of the time, we're responding to the violations, right? This person is doing things that make me feel uncomfortable, I don't like. I'm responding to that. I'm coming to you like, I don't like that, right? So I'm reacting. I'm not being proactive, I'm being reactive. And the key to a healthy relationship is setting it up for success in the beginning, preventing those failures. We don't want them to fail to tell them what the right answer is, right? We want to stop them from failing so that we can be successful together and grow together. So don't set these people up on a mission to not disappoint you, right? A healthy relationship can not flourish if the other person is super hyper focused on not trying to hurt you. And this really happens when you're presenting your boundaries as a series of don'ts, right? I don't like this, and I don't like when people do that, and I really don't want this to happen to me, and I don't like when and you're just don't do that. And so now this person's just running around. You done told them 35 don'ts. They don't know what you like. They just stepping on eggshells at this point, trying not to offend you, right? So we want to make sure that you're not rattling off a series of don'ts to people. You want to make sure you're being proactive and being direct and clear with articulating what your boundaries are. Okay. And the best way to do this is to always follow a negative. So something that you find is a violation of your values, moral, respect, and trust, you're going to follow that up, right, with positive, right? So I'm going to tell you something that I find pleasing, something that's loving, respectful, and in line with my values. So 2 likes for every dislike that I share with my partner. Okay. And this gives your partner a leg up on some positive things they can do that you've already, rubber stamped. You already said, hey, I like this. Okay. And so now that partner knows what you like and they can try to do those things instead of just running around trying not to make you mad. Okay. And so when you share positivity, it fosters growth in that relationship, right? That person doesn't feel like they're going to mess up every 5 seconds, right? I know what she likes. Okay. Caution, make sure you're sharing often. You don't want to share that one time some good things you like, because what will happen is that person's going to do that thing 50,000 times. All right. You're going to tell this man, hey, babe, I really love it. When someone rubs my back in a circle while I watch TV and lay on their lap, you're going to lay in his lap and he's going to rub a whole extra hole in the back of your shirt because that's what you told him he liked and that's all he knows you like. So he's going to keep doing that because he wants to make you happy. You ain't tell him nothing new. So he's working with old news or the same news. So you want to give him something else to work with and share often with him different things that you enjoy so that they always have an arsenal and they can look for opportunities to make you smile versus trying to avoid making you unhappy, right? Or this is healthy relationship. I'm just trying to make you happy. I know you like these things. Okay. And then we're going to be positive. So sharing things when you actually like the person. I know that sounds funny, but sometimes when you want to tell somebody something, it might not be the time where you feel the best about them, right? So say a violation occurs. You are upset with this person. They violated whatever boundary it is. That's not really the time to jump in and be like, I like this, this, and this in the middle of why you don't really like them, right? Take a minute. It's okay. It doesn't have to happen in succession. And it also depends on the violation, but sometimes just that brief moment of woosah and clarity can help you better, one, articulate what you feel, because you're not going to have a lot of emotion distorting how you can share how you feel, right? And also bring clarity to the situation in itself. You have time to process it, see where maybe you went wrong, what he did specifically that you didn't like, and you can really say that and present it better when you're in a clear headspace. So when you like that person, it's the best time to share some things that you enjoy. So you guys are cuddled up in bed at night, you guys are laughing and having a good time. And then you just be like, look, I don't know where the conversation might go, but maybe you guys are talking about, I don't know, church or something. And you go, I really like if I can have a man that I can call on when I'm like, pray for me. Right. People shoot that pray for me. And then, either some people pray, they don't. But you're like, if my man can come in and pray with me, I really love that. And you guys are having a good time and he's receiving that information. You're receiving things that he's sharing. And it's an even positive exchange between the both of you. Okay. Because sometimes if you share that when that if you're upset, that person's upset, they might not want to reject what you're saying, but if they're in an emotionally charged place as well, they might just not hear you because they're too, in their own emotions. Okay. So we want to avoid that. So share it when you like the person, when they like you, everybody's on good terms to give them more positive things. But yeah. And finally, we're going to be realistic. Be realistic about your expectations. All right. Do not set them up what they should have known. You should know not to do that. You should know not to say that. You should know not to touch me like that. This person does not know what you're thinking. Yes, you think that, it's common sense, but they say common sense is not common, but also people's experiences aren't the same. And so their perception of what is acceptable will be different. Okay. When a person enters a relationship, they're operating on assumptions of values, right? They assume stuff. I don't know what you like, so I have to assume things in order to interact with you. Okay. So if I'm operating on these assumptions of values, I'm going to assume that you value the same things I value, or you value the same things the last person I was with value. That's the information I have. Past experiences or my own experiences, right? So that's what I came in with. So if you know that your partner is operating on these assumptions, which is completely normal, it's okay. We have, as humans, have to operate based off what we have as existing knowledge, right? That's what we got to work with. Okay. But both parties, like I said, this is two-sided. Both parties need to be willing to accept new information and then make the adjustments out of respect for the other person. And because I'm eager to make this a really good relationship, that's what I want. So I'm going to want to hear what you like and what your boundaries are. Right? I'm going to be receptive to that. Okay. So make sure you understand that. Don't, be realistic. That person doesn't know what you want, at all in any capacity. They're going off of their understanding. All right. And finally, guys, we want to expect that they're going to test your boundaries. You're going to have your boundaries tested. You're going to put them up and someone's going to tap on them and see if they're real. All right. Even the best man that you've ever loved in the world, woman, whomever, is going to test a couple boundaries to see if you were for real. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to go with sex. I keep saying sex because that's a really hot topic. To be honest, I hear it a lot where people are having the differences of when I want to initiate it. I don't want it. He didn't do it the way I liked it, or whatever the case is. This person's not performing right, or to my standards in the bedroom, or whatever the case is, right? If you're going to set your boundaries, you have to make them clear. And that includes your non-verbal body language. So you can't tell him no and start laughing. This mixed signals. I don't know if you like it or not, right? So you're like, no, I don't want to have sex right now. Ha 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 ha. Right. And this includes my nervous gigglers, because there's people who start giggling just because they're nervous and you're confusing them. They don't know if you for real or you joking. I don't know what to do. Right. So you're not being clear about your boundaries. And if that's a habit, we need to break that habit, because you're confusing people. All right. He doesn't know what you want, or she, whoever. Okay, so if you want them to take your boundaries serious, make sure your nonverbal cues are aligning with your verbal cues. I'm saying no, I'm firm. I meant what I said, straight face. I don't like that. Please don't do it again. Okay. If they're tapping on those lines, you need to make sure, once again, this requires you to be sure of yourself. If these are hard no's, like, no, I definitely don't want this to happen to me, you need to make sure you're firm with it. Okay. If it's a little chalk outline and they just put some water and rub the line away, and then you was like, psych, we're cool with it. I mean, understand your tolerance level. If you're okay with that, then you need to be okay with it. Once again, it could be a slippery slope. So be wary of erasing too many of your boundary lines quickly, especially when they're tested, right? I like when people are on time and then he's late again and you don't say nothing. Then he's late again and then you don't say anything, right? That line's starting to look really chalked, right? It doesn't look like a firm wall. It doesn't seem like a hard no, because you're not checking it. Okay. And in part 2, we're going to talk about protecting our boundaries. All right. Yeah, so that is it, guys. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad that you guys hung in there with me. Like I said, that's why I put it in 2 parts. I didn't want to talk your faces off or mine, because my voice only extends for so long. But I just want you guys to get some good information, start figuring out what your boundaries are, figuring out what that means for you in your relationship. Part 2 of this, we're going to really dig into maybe why your relationship is not progressing the way you feel. We're going to talk about adding boundaries to your current relationships, protecting those boundaries. Like we're saying, if that person's knocking on that boundary, how do I defend this? How do I let them know, look, when do I hard stop it? When do I leave? Right? So we're going to talk about that in part 2. And then we're also going to talk about barricades versus boundaries. Right? We have boundaries, but some people need to be barricaded out. Okay? We'll stop giving boundaries to people who need barricades. Okay, so that's going to be our part 2 for this. I I appreciate you guys. We have another training coming up on the 25th of this month, and it's going to be about the 5 reasons your self-care isn't helping. So please register for that. Subscribe. Sorry, I knocked out the thing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I post videos, not just webinars that are just already pre-recorded. You can listen to those at your leisure. Like I said, everything is free. Information is free. Grab some popcorn, drink some wine, listen to me, give you some great information, hopefully. I post new content every week, so feel free to share it, like it.